Greetings, everyone. This is Rock and Roll Spot coming at you with the weekly comic book roundup. We've covered this week's X-Men books and Spider-Man books. Now it's time to cover this week's Avengers books. Kicking things off with Avengers number 61. So, the Avengers are going through time to try and save the Age of Heroes, as it were. Running into other teams of Avengers from throughout history and helping them stop Mephisto from, and the Multiverse of Masters of Evil from killing them. So, this issue focuses on Starbrand. Apparently, the team voted to not include her on the mission, as it seems that when she uses her powers, she ages. And clearly the worry is that she will burn herself out and age herself to death by using her powers. We get a shot of the Avengers of 1047 AD fighting a Mephisto Tyrannosaur. The Avengers here being Thor, the wild-hearted Prince of Thunder, who had only recently had his hammer Mjolnir for the very first time. Mirkfoot, the Eight-Man Mystic, the Sasquatch Sorcerer Supreme. Bodolf the Black, the strongest Viking that there ever was. Theodosia Zidaros, the witch who was burned at the stake and never stopped burning. He became a hunter of witches, possessed by a power from beyond the stars, the Phoenix Witch of Wundagore. Nahanda, the renegade panther, and her lover, Princess Gale, the outlaw Atlantean Iron Fist, and the mysterious grizzly rider of the Cahokia. But Starbrand ends up coming in and finishing off Dino Mephisto. Then 1924 in Hong Kong, we've got Grandmaster Wong, China's mightiest hero, the Drunken Dragon Fist, and Knuckles O'Shaughnessy, Dead End's Kid Spirit of Vengeance. Once again, Starbrand saves the day. Then, 66 million years ago, they fight alongside the T-Rex Starbrand. Afterwards, Valkyrie and Starbrand have a chat. Starbrand's been learning stuff, and she's kind of focused on, one thing she's kind of focused on is mayflies, who hatch and live for 24 hours. Don't even have the time they never even evolved a mouth because they're not going to have time to eat, basically. But Valkyrie tells her that she is constantly escorting living beings to the realm of the dead. Quite a few mayfly swarms that she's escorted to the realm of the dead. The common thought is, that they wish they could have had some nectar when they had the chance. But the T-Rex Starbrand, the two Starbrands bond a bit with the T-Rex, passing on along that the meteor that killed the dinosaurs had the Starbrand in it. And they commune, talking about, not telepathically. I would say it's through the Starbrand. But Brandy gets the opportunity to commune with the T-Rex Starbrand. And we see little bits of her interacting with Thor, flying alongside Thor, swimming with one of the spirits of vengeance from the past, working, helping Tony in his workshop, arm wrestling with Namor, looking at the stars with Captain Marvel, meditating with Nighthawk, sitting at a campfire with Cap. We go back to flashback to the American West, as well as little bits from some other recent issues, so they finally end up in 1 million BC. But there's a slight problem. Brandy is now an old woman. But the issue ends with her narrating that a few weeks ago she was sleeping in a crib. Now she's here at the cradle of the world with Earth's mightiest heroes, and one last chance to save all of reality. She feels like she's still got a good couple punches left in her, and she plans on making them count. As I said, that is where the issue ends. They're definitely building up to an interesting. We've had the announcement of Avengers Assemble, which is going to wrap up which will be a crossover to wrap up Jason Aaron's Avengers run. So, all leading up to that. So, moving on to our next book, we've got Captain America: Symbol of Truth, number 6. Where we left off, Cap had got into a bit of a fight with Black Panther, and caused Wakanda to go back on their program of allowing Black Americans to immigrate to Wakanda. And the White Wolf was apparently well pleased, even if Crossbones did fail in his part of things. So, issue begins at the United Nations headquarters. The newly elected Prime Minister of the nation of Mahanda is giving a speech to the General Assembly. Talking about everything that her country's gone through. Sam's on her side. Basically, the Prime Minister was asking for financial assistance for her country. However, due to her policies, she is incredibly unpopular, and there have been hints. There's been at least a degree of chatter that an attempt could be made upon her. So Captain America and Falcon are keeping an eye out, and there does appear to be something outside. An old man seems to be having a cardiac episode outside. It appears to be the Prime Minister's grandfather. Follow that, there's a gas attack. Falcon gets her out of the UN building, but is attacked by two gunmen in wingsuits. Falcon is injected with something by a medic who appears to be with the terrorists, and a bomb goes off on one of the gunmen, killing the Prime Minister, and Falcon is also down for the count. Apparently, the assassins were Mahanda nationals. had the old apartheid flag of the country tattooed on. The one that was captured had the old apartheid flag tattooed on his chest. In Mohanda, the announcement was made that the Prime Minister has been assassinated, and it does appear that the White Wolf's troops are gearing up for an offensive, it seems, to celebrate the news. And that is where the issue ends. They're definitely heating up with both Cap books. Moving on to our next book, we've got Iron Man number 24. Where we left off, Tony was trying to buy up all of the cutting-edge weaponry on the black market, building up to buying the Mandarin rings. Seeing that it was all he had secured the purchase, but he was informed. But it was mainly just getting him. Allowing the sale to go through was just something that spy masters have to get Tony Stark in the open. Largely, I would assume. And it was revealed that Cobalt Man had already purchased the rings. But Tony gives his former ally Force a speech after armoring up. He gives Force a speech and then proceeds to whoop his ass with an assist from War Machine. Spy Master asks if Tony's gonna give him a fancy speech too, and Tony says, "No, you're not worth it." But Spy Master says to Cobalt Man, "Hey, if you please take these guys, take Iron Man, War Machine out." But instead, Cobalt Man fires the Darkness Ring at Spy Master, Force, and his associates. And Cobalt Man reveals himself to be, in fact, Rai Williams, aka Ironheart, explaining she had kind of the same idea, but mainly just to get the Mandarin rings out of circulation. But the rest of the issue is Tony and Rai arguing about what to do with the Mandarin rings. Rai wants to use them to actually do something good for the world, whereas Tony just wants to destroy them. And they keep going back and forth. Tony trying to say, "Oh, if I did this, Reed Richards and the Avengers would be beating down my door." But eventually, Tony decides to trust her. So, okay, fine. Wanting to be kept in the loop as to how she's progressing with her plan. But and while Rai does agree to update Tony on what she's doing, she does say she doesn't have to prove anything to him. But Rai flies off, and Rhodey says he's worried, though Tony says that he is too. But letting Ironheart keep the ring seems like the most right thing. Now they have to go fix Tony's spleen, and then Tony has to piss off the rest of his friends. And that is where the issue ends, with the next issue being the final issue of Christopher Cantwell's Iron Man run, as well as the legacy number 650th issue by legacy numbering of Iron Man. I like this arc. It was a good arc. I like the concept that Tony basically using all of his money to get all the worst super weapons off the worst weapons off the black market. I think that's actually really neat. And I also like the idea that somebody will say, hey, some of these don't necessarily have to be weapons. They can be, yeah, in the wrong hand. In certain people's hands, they can be devastating weapons, but they can also do a crazy amount of good. So, and I'm glad that I was able to get Tony to see it from her perspective. Anyway, moving on to our next book, we've got Thor number 28. Where we left off, Venom was in Asgard, alongside Thor, going up against the recently symbiote-possessed Desmond Pitt, aka Darkoth, who had created his own Mjolnir, which he promptly uses on Thor as the issue opens, which seemingly causes Mjolnir to bleed. But Venom suggests a plan and combines himself with Thor, and so the God in Black takes on Darkoth and manages to remove the symbiote from him. But Darkoth is unresponsive after this. Venom takes Darkoth's hammer and reveals that while he is technically Eddie Brock, he's not, well, and technically the Eddie Brock that Thor knows, he hasn't been the Eddie Brock that Thor knows for a very long time, and is now Meridius. But Thor and Meridius duke it out. Thor letting loose. The hammer and the symbiote are seemingly destroyed, with what's left of it seeping into the ground of Asgard. With Thor saying, this should be a problem, there's nothing beneath them but solid rock. Though Loki knows better, as that is where Donald Blake is being tortured, with snake venom constantly dripping into his eyes. Until some droplets of the child of Bedlam fall into his eyes, seemingly beginning to turn Blake into a serpent. And that is where the issue ends. Interesting. I like the fact that Al Ewing co-wrote these last couple of issues. I think I kind of like the idea of having the writer of a character's regular book coming in to write that character in another book. I feel like it keeps things it keeps the characterization consistent. Moving on to our last one for the moment, though, we've got Miracleman: The Silver Age, number 1. So last week we had a Miracleman one-shot. Just kind of some quick stories setting up, featuring the character and his supporting cast. This is so. I guess it was back in the 80s or 90s, perhaps. Neil Gaiman and Mark Buckingham were intent upon reviving Miracleman with this series, The Silver Age. But there were issues. There were some problems, and it went unfinished. So now Marvel Comics is having bought the rights to Miracleman, formerly known as Marvelman. They're reprint. They're reprinting the issues that have been done and allowing Gaiman and Buckingham to finish up the series. Well, and yes, the I was correct in my how I described Miracleman as being similar to Shazam. He has to speak a word to become Miracleman. So our story's set in the year 2003. It's been 20 years since the Kid Miracleman story. But that's one way of measuring time. However, it could also be seen as 19 EM, Era of Miracles. But 19 years ago, the world changed. A man or God who would work miracles came down from the sky, saved humanity from the devil, then saved them from themselves. And he gave the world utopia. He brought others like him. So we've got two super beings fighting, smashing through buildings. It's just making sure they are well trained in using their powers. It's practice basically. When Klimzor, the Galactitron, destroyer of worlds, arrives, it's again just additional training. It's one of their allies taking the form of totally not Galactus. Yeah, she says in the sketchbook that Klimzor was visually inspired by Galactus. But during the fight, Mist arrives and explains that it's the Waking Day. The waking of young Miracleman. So the Miracleman family consisted of Miracleman, young Miracleman, and Kid Miracleman. But he wakes and he's met by Miracleman. Something Miracleman intends to kind of ease him into the how things are now. So in the 1960s, the project that made Miracleman was destroyed by the UK in an atomic strike. Miracleman himself was depowered and remained that way for 20 years. Kid Miracleman kept his powers, but was slowly driven insane by them. Young Miracleman was killed. However, his body was found in stasis in the Underdark, and some genetic samples were taken to be, and his mind copied, as it were, and so a new young Miracleman has been born. But he meets Mist, Miracleman's daughter, and then goes to meet Miracleman's allies. Meeting Miraclewoman, Miracleman's consort. Apparently, Miraclewoman and young Miracleman had met before. Then there's British Bulldog, formerly known as Big Ben. Huey Moon, a fire drake. Conabler and Fawn Muda, warpsmiths, envoys from the Gulf worlds. Wars, a race called the Keese, and Wars being the one who managed to bring young Miracleman back from the dead. But young Miracleman is feeling a bit overwhelmed. Goes back to his quarters and it's clear he's very much a product of the time he's from, especially, and I feel like that is an ample excuse, seeing as how he'd been dead for 40 years. So, but he's asked to recount his origin, But Miracleman says no, that was a fiction that was created and fed into and piped into your head. The truth is that young Miracleman is Richard William Dauntless, born in 1942. His father, Flight Lieutenant Michael Robert Dauntless, died 2 years later, returning from a mission to find Richard's mother in bed with Michael's best friend. Shot them and then turned the gun on himself. In 1954, kidnapped from a boys' home by Emil Gargunza, a scientist working for the British government, or an intelligence department known as the Spook Show. But he was investigating and exploiting technology developed from a crashed spaceship, cloning the body of young Miracleman. In 1963, for 9 years, the Miracleman family was kept kept asleep for 8 years. With the explanation, almost all of their memory adventures back then were artificial implants of Gargunza's devising. In '63, they were woken up and sent to their deaths, or what should have been their deaths. Then the Kid Miracleman tale is explained that Kid Miracleman went bad, tried to destroy London and killed a lot of people. But it just seems like, but I think he just needs to he's trying to digest everything basically. But Zapster and Duncan opt to go back out for a quick bit of training, and that is where the issue ends. Okay, I'm kind of viewing even with the one shot. I am viewing this as my actual introduction to the character of Miracleman. I'm digging it I'm liking it so far. Stuff written by Neil Gaiman, it's kind of elevated in the fact that it's written by Neil Gaiman. So but there's apparently a Miracleman omnibus coming out, and hopefully I'll be able to pick that up in the nearish future and kind of immerse myself in the past. I know from last year's Timeless one shot that Miracleman is going to play a part in things to come in regular Marvel continuity. So I'm curious to see how that's gonna play out. Anyway, that is going to do it for now. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying, live long and rock hard.